Well, it is hard for many of us to imagine the fear thousands of Afghans will be experiencing tonight as the hours tick down, surely understanding that their chances of leaving Kabul are decreasing fast, if without papers they ever had a chance in the first place. 2,000 Afghans with papers are still there, but it's unclear where they are, whether they're in the vicinity of the airport, which, as we've just reported, is now deemed unsafe because of an ongoing terror threat, or still hiding in the city, and whether they could make it through the Taliban's checkpoints anyway. So how many hours are there left before the last planes of refugees leave Kabul ahead of the 31st of August? The coalition is deliberately not saying, so concerned are they about panic. The US preparations are already underway, and before they pull out, the British military and others will have left the runway. Here is David Grossman with his assessment of the practicalities which will dominate the remaining days.
Driving an American truck bought for the Afghan police by the US military, the Taliban patrol the streets around Kabul airport. It is by their agreement and their permission that the evacuations continue. And they want the world to believe that they are in a generous mood.
We forgive everyone. Anyone who made problems in the past, even the military, everyone is forgiven.
The Pentagon today claimed they had a flight leaving Kabul every 39 minutes. But for how much longer? Today, the US military confirmed that for the final few days, it will concentrate on evacuating its own personnel.
We will have to reserve some capacity in those last couple of days to prioritize the military footprint leaving, because we want to be able to keep it there as long as possible to do the job that it's intended to do.
That means that in those final few days, the US and UK will be increasingly dependent on the agreement with the Taliban. NATO's retreat will be guarded by their enemies standing behind a barricade of luggage trolleys.
Things could change very dramatically, very quickly. But I believe that if the Taliban's understanding with the United States holds, and they do provide the security parameter around the airport, which they have done now, and the people who have amassed there are largely people who amassed for some days now, it's not going to be a repeat of the scenes that we saw in the first couple of days when everything collapsed there. But again, you know, as I said, Afghanistan is quite unpredictable. And I think more than anything, that sense of abandonment amongst those Afghans, one could only imagine, is quite palpable.
That means, though, that the Taliban are deciding who gets into the airport, and we get glimpses of their methods. The UK's definition of who qualifies for evacuation comes nowhere near covering all those who believe they should be offered protection.
Hello, sir.
I spoke to someone in Kabul we're calling Salim. He's 17. His older brother, who worked for the British military, is now safely in the UK. Salim told me that he and the rest of the family have been refused help and are terrified. We've revoiced his words to protect his identity.
Just my brother is in the UK and we are in Afghanistan. Our life is in danger. We would like to go, our whole family, but we can't. We tried to get to the airport, but we couldn't.
You don't believe the Taliban when they say that there will be no reprisals?
No, we don't believe the Taliban. We tried to change our location every time because Taliban are searching home by home for Afghan government employees and for UK government employees. They are killing their families if they don't find the persons who were UK and US employees.
Bureaucracies work on lists, and the chaos of Kabul defies neat categorization. But outside the capital, the uncertainty is even worse. Little by way of reliable information emerges.
People are very confused as to what's going to happen, because for them also, as they follow the news, the international media and the wider lens just happens to be on the story of the airport. And the local media has predominantly collapsed, or they are incredibly cautiously reporting so as to not upset the new Taliban regime. So as far as I have gathered, people are feeling relieved that sense of kind of calmness has come. But obviously, that doesn't mean security in every sense.
The UN agency UNICEF is one of the few international organisations still working outside Kabul. While NATO concentrates on the August 31st deadline, it's clear this nation's problems will continue much longer and go well beyond the airport.
That is the airport, that is one small part of Kabul, and across the country, the humanitarian needs are immense. We have got many people in camps for internally displaced people. I visited a camp yesterday in Kabul and saw many families who had fled with nothing. And they are in a state of despair. They are exhausted. They don't know what is going to happen next.
Tonight, the US Secretary of State did his best to sound resolute.
Let me be crystal clear about this. There is no deadline on our work to help any remaining American citizens who decide they want to leave to do so, along with the many Afghans who have stood by us over these many years.
But how much is this just for US domestic consumption? How much impact will it have in an increasingly desperate Afghanistan? Once the military leave, is this country pretty much on its own?